This is John for Global Women's Sports Radio. Tonight I'm on the beat. I have a very special guest. She's a semi retired professional wrestler. She's a huge Cleveland Browns fan, and she's now a podcaster. I've got Sassy Stephie. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm great. I'm talking to you. I haven't talked to you in several years. It was always fun when we did talk, though.
Yeah.
You're looking good. You're looking fit and trim, and like ready to still go in the ring. So
Oh, well, I stopped wrestling about 3 years ago. The reason why I say I semi-retired is because I want to go back, but almost 2 years ago, I had a baby, and then by the time I got my body back to where I wanted it to be, the pandemic happened. So trying to come back during a pandemic isn't really
bad timing. Yeah.
something you could do.
So do you think you still have a few more matches in you?
I would love to. I mean, it really depends, like how COVID ends or goes away or whatever. I mean, it kind of just depends with the timing of everything.
Gotcha. Well, we're going to talk about your podcast, but first I want to just go through a little bit of your wrestling career. You had an interesting start. You were a DJ, and then you did some ring announcing, and
Hmm.
then you progressed into wrestling. So before you became a ring announcer, did you have an interest in wrestling?
Oh, I've loved wrestling since I was a kid. For me, the moment that I remember, and I know I watched it before because it was always on whenever it was on TV in my household, because my dad, my brother, my grandpa, wherever I was, it was on. But like, I didn't really remember it as much, but like the moment for me was Sensational Sherry and Shawn Michaels when they came out to the ring together, and I was like, "Who is this woman? What is she doing? I want to be exactly like her." And since then, that was like what hooked me. That's what I really remember.
So Sherry would be kind of like your first wrestling role model or idol or
Oh
favorite.
my God, yes, yes. In fact, on my podcast, on both of my shoulders, I have posters of her on my background. So.
I've seen. I was going to ask you about that. Is have you did you ever get a chance to meet her? Obviously, you can't anymore, but did you ever get a chance?
No, sadly. I went to the WWE Hall of Fame where she was inducted, so I did get to be like in the same vicinity as her, but I never
Okay.
got to meet her.
Oh, that's too bad.
I
She's
know.
one of the few that I didn't meet either, and I really would have liked to.
Oh,
No,
I would go crazy if I would have met her. I would be speechless.
I mean, she truly in the like the modern era, she truly was one of the pioneers. I mean, she did it
Hmm.
all. So you started wrestling 2007, I believe you made your debut. How do you think women's wrestling has progressed or changed in the 13 or so years?
Oh man, it's crazy different. Back when I started, I would even say there was like an influx of women coming in at that time because probably, let's say, 5 years before that, you had like the Women of Honor and a few independent women wrestlers here or there, but it wasn't like a thing, you know what I mean? When I started coming in, especially in Ohio, a lot of girls were starting to train and starting to really make a name for themselves. So I was like, oh, this is great. I have lots of girls I can wrestle all the time, and that's what happens. Whereas years before that, you had pretty much the same person you were wrestling all the time. So, but now, like, there's as many women as there are men in the business, and like, I try to keep my, hands in wrestling, especially the independents, to see the women coming up and stuff like that. And there's so many women that even I'm like, oh my god, I want to come back just to work with this person because they're amazing. And of course, it seems like all the TV companies are scooping up those girls at the same time. So even if I do come back, most of them, I'm not gonna get to work.
Well, then there's the next crop of younger
Yes, yes,
talent
there's
that,
a
that
lot of great girls.
there's always someone to wrestle a Sassy Steph. We
Yeah.
want to we want to see the comeback. We definitely want to see the
Oh,
comeback.
I would love to.
Now, you were ranked by Pro Wrestling Illustrated a few times in their top
Hmm.
50 women. How cool was that? How did you feel like when you like to actually see yourself on that list?
The first time, like, I was like, what? Like, I'm listed? That's crazy. And then the years after that, I was still like absolutely flattered and humbled that, PWI would even include me. But, at that time for women's wrestling, if you were on Shimmer, you're a lot, not a lot, but you might make it onto the PWI, top 50. Now they had to expand it to the 100 because, again, there's such an influx of women's wrestlers coming in, and so many other areas, AEW, mostly, that came, and WWE's picked up a lot more women too. So there's all these women that are getting these high spots in the PWI top 100 now because they're getting a lot of national TV exposure. So for someone on the independents now to make it, it's a lot harder.
Now, when you've won a few belts during your time, do you get to keep any part of, like, is there like a side plate or anything that you get to keep from those?
No, I wish. Some belts, some places, they don't. How can I say this politely? They don't take a lot of effort into going and making title belts, and they just use like replica belts from WWE or WCW. Or uh, sadly enough, one time I even had a foam one that was just from like the toy store down the street or something. So no, I think that's more like WWE, more people that can afford that kind of stuff, because championship belts are not cheap at all
Right.
by any imagination. So, but there's a couple of belts that like I wish I could have held on to something. But it's cool when a lot of promotions will let you take the belt home with you. So a lot of times, like I had a nice little place on my shelf where I would put my titles at the time.
Oh, cool. Like
Yeah.
that would be really cool. So let's talk about something really important though, the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
Congratulations, fantastic year. The last time we
Yes.
talked about the Cleveland Browns, we were commiserating because both our teams, honestly, both our teams sucked.
Yeah.
But it looks like is Baker Mayfield, is he the real deal?
You know what? I think so. I'm 100% behind Baker. I'm 100% behind the entire team this year. I thought they did fantastic. I mean, literally 3 seasons ago, we didn't win a game at all, and we were the laughing stock of the NFL. Not that we ever weren't, because basically my entire like adulthood life, people are like, how can you like the Cleveland
Well,
Browns? I'm like, it's instilled in me. That's who I am as a person. I'm from the Cleveland area. That's what's instilled in me. And now, this year we weren't supposed to even make the playoffs because the Steelers were going to beat us and not allow us to get in. And then we beat the Steelers the second week in a row for the wild card rounds of the playoffs. And then we had the Kansas City Chiefs, which I have a lot of personal opinions about that game myself, so we won't get into all of that.
yeah.
But I think we should have even beat the Kansas City Chiefs, and we should be playing this weekend the Buffalo Bills. But go Bills!
Hey, well, I agree with you, and I'm glad you clarified that because I should have said it. You're not a bandwagon jumper. You are a longtime,
Oh yeah,
diehard, knowledgeable Cleveland Browns fan.
yeah. I have my throwback jersey for Bernie Kosar that I wear every weekend.
I
I
was
also
gonna.
have my Baker Mayfield one too, but I wear my Cleveland Bernie Kosar jersey almost all the time, and he was the quarterback. I think it was 88 to 93. So I was a little child back then when he was
I was
quarterback.
gonna ask. Was like he one of your first guys?
Oh yeah, yeah. He was like, when I was 4 years old, my mom was what they call a Browns backer, and that's like a fan that is like invested into the team. They go to different events, and she was a nurse, so she would volunteer to do like nurse things at their charity events if they needed anything. So I remember my mom went to I was getting minor surgery done when I was a kid, and she went to an event a couple of days or maybe a week or so beforehand, and Bernie Kosar was there. And at the time, he was so popular in Cleveland, he had a candy bar, and she had taken it, and he actually autographed the wrapper.
Wow,
And still to this day, I still have that wrapper. So we're
awesome.
talking, it's like 20 plus years old, like 25 plus years old.
That's cool though.
Yeah.
Like you could, not that you would, but you could probably sell that on eBay for some decent bucks for some Browns
Oh
fans.
no, I would never.
No,
That's
no, no. I know you would. There's no doubt about
maybe,
that.
maybe, but that's definitely never leaving me. I love it too much.
Now, are you also, is it just the Browns or are you a fan of the Indians, the Cavaliers?
When I was in Cleveland, I would go to Indians games for fun, but like I was never really a diehard. I've never been to a professional basketball game ever, so like I had like Cleveland Cavaliers like shirts and stuff that I've worn in the past, but I've never really gotten that into them.
Okay.
Unfortunately, football is my sport, and now
Hey.
hockey. Now that I'm in Canada,
Oh, yeah. Well, you got the original six. You got the Montreal Canadiens. Sure.
yeah. Well, I kind of when I moved here, my husband's a big fan of Montreal Canadiens, so I kind of married into that. And sadly, for a long time, he married into the Cleveland Browns. But now this year, he was really happy that his wife was a Browns fan and they were doing well.
Yeah. Well, now you can enjoy it. Someday I hope to, feel the same thing about my Bears, but
Oh, you'll get there. Look, it took us the Browns. The last time we won a playoff game was like 26 years ago. So trust me, there's time to turn it around.
Okay. Let's talk some serious stuff now.
Sure.
You've got a podcast. You've got a
Hmm.
podcast, Talkin Sass
Yeah.
with. It's just not wrestling though. I know you've interviewed a lot of wrestlers. You've interviewed Hardcore Heather, which was one of my favorite episodes. The two of you together is just like magic. But you also interviewed Brian O'Halloran. So
Hmm.
you're going beyond wrestling. So tell us everything about the podcast.
Oh, well, it's mostly wrestling. I concentrate really on wrestling because that's kind of my niche that I know the most. But for Halloween, Brian O'Halloran was my guest. I really wanted to have I know a couple of people at Travel Channel, and I wanted to have one of them come on and talk about ghosts and vampires and all the cryptozoology things that go along with Halloween and paranormal stuff. But unfortunately, their schedule, because it's Halloween and they work for Travel Channel, just didn't work out. So I was like scrambling to try to find somebody, and I wanted somebody, that would be fun for Halloween. And I was like, oh my God, like I know Brian from an event that we did called Fireball Run. And I asked him, and he was like, yeah, that'd be great. And Brian is such a supreme, awesome person to begin with. So I was really happy to have him. And I've reached out to some other actors and stuff, but they haven't been on yet, but we're going to work on it. In 2021, that's what I'm doing, trying to branch out into other avenues of entertainment so that it's not just wrestling.
Well, you've had a bit of you've done a lot in the entertainment. You were a host for the Fireball Run. I know you've done some DJing. So, do you want to expand on this and go into maybe some sort of broadcasting or your own entertainment empire?
Uh, that would be amazing. Right now, I'm just kind of taking it day by day because of COVID. It's very hard. And with me being in Montreal, and to go basically into anything entertainment wise here, you have to know French, which
Okay.
I can get by with my pleasantries, but to have a conversation, I'm not there yet. So it's very hard breaking out here, but it's definitely still possible. There's a lot of great film studios here and a lot of movies because of the tax breaks that you get for filming in Canada, especially in the larger cities like Vancouver or Toronto or Montreal. There's a lot of great people that come here. Even in the summers when COVID isn't around, obviously last year we didn't have, and who knows if we'll have this year. We have the Just for Laughs Festival, which is the biggest comedy festival in the world. And was it last year? I think it was last year, or maybe it was 2 years ago. Either way, Kevin Hart was here for Just for Laughs, and he was also filming a movie at the same time. And he put out during the day, he was like, I'm going to have a show at this place, and it's first come, first serve. So we got there like 7 o'clock, and the show was at like 10 o'clock. We were one of the first couple people in line. So I was literally sitting 5 feet away from
Wow.
Kevin
Nice.
Hart, and it was awesome. He was so funny. And he was just like, you weren't allowed to bring, like, weren't allowed to take pictures or anything or cell phones because he was trying out new material.
Okay, sure.
So it was really cool. So yeah, I would love to, break out in that, find a way. I'm sure there's a way once COVID gets out. So, but right now, just building Talking Sass and having a good time with that and taking it day by day for now.
Well, the cool thing, it sounds weird to say this, but the cool thing about COVID is a lot of people are doing Zoom or Skype
Mhm.
interviews. I've gotten to do the WNBA stuff, which I never would have gotten to do if it wasn't for COVID. I would just do the Chicago team, but now I did every team. So, there might be some possibilities because of it, which is really
Sure.
weird.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of great. I mean, if it wasn't for COVID, I don't think that I would actually have the time to sit down and do a podcast because it's a lot of time and effort. And thank God my husband does 90% of the editing for me because I'm still learning that too. So, if it were up to us then with our schedule, I mean, we have a son and everything. So to get up in the morning, take him to school, go to work, come home, cook dinner, go to put him to bed, and then edit and do the podcast, it would be very, very difficult. So being at home really helps a lot.
Oh, I'm sure. Do you have any episodes already done that are coming out in the future?
I do. I film all of mine a couple weeks in advance, and I'm already filled up till March. All of them
Any
are already,
any
yeah,
scoop?
already shot and right. They're just got to be edited and ready to go.
Any scoops? Anybody?
Sure, I can tell you. I have Angelina Love. Well, right now I have Rob Schomburger, who is WWE's resident artist, and he's
That was
tells.
really cool.
Yeah, he tells some really great stories. Really great stories. I have Angelina Love coming up. Who else? I did Marty Bell. I did Delmi Exo, and I did Amber Nova as well. So a
So
lot of
you're
great girls.
That's exciting. Do you have any, obviously you have a wish list. I don't know if you're willing to reveal like if you can get like your top 3 or 4 that you really would like to get. Obviously, like we know The Rock and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
how about like semi-realistic?
Semi-realistic. Who? Medusa is on that list. I've actually asked her, but she was just like, not right now. Good luck on the podcast. And I was like, thanks. I've asked Jerry the King Lawler. Um, who else have I asked? Like, I just like I want like a lot of old school people because that's where I feel like I fit in. Even though like I love modern day stuff too. Obviously, Nikki Cross is also on that list, and I asked her, and she asked WWE, and they just said not right now, maybe in the future. So that's realistic too, in a way. I mean, obviously, John Cena and The Rock are like my
Sure.
great ones, obviously, and Stephanie McMahon's also like one of those ones where I don't know if I'll ever get it, but that's the goal.
Hey, you never know. You get a shot.
Yeah, who
Any,
knows?
any Cleveland Browns? Are you gonna attempt to do any of that? Bernie
Oh,
Kosar?
yes. I did a Cleveland Browns podcast actually for their playoff win. I did a roundtable discussion with a couple of their Cleveland Browns fans, and that were all wrestlers as well. And I did ask Eric Metcalf, who was also in the early 90s, to come on the show. I didn't get a response. A lot of these people, I'm sure they probably have all sorts of requests all the time anyway, so it's hard to get through all of that noise. Um, so yeah, I would love to have Bernie Kosar. Oh, that would be my dream. I'm not like the current Browns. I'm sure I'd probably have to go through the Cleveland Browns organization and figure out the ins and outs there, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
You never know. You never know. Your podcast is building. You are a huge Cleveland fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's connections. So before I let you go, it's your forum. Give whatever promotion you want to your site, wherever they can find Talkin Sass. All you.
All right, fantastic. If you go to YouTube or your favorite podcast platform, you can find Talking Sass. It's TALKIN apostrophe SASS. And a new episode comes out every Thursday. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Sassy Stephie. And then also, if you feel like you want to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/Sassy Stephie. You get the podcast early. You get to know the guests ahead of time. Plus, I do little games with my guests that are only Patreon exclusives, plus a lot of other cool things depending on what tier you select. And it helps me out because a podcast, surprisingly, is not cheap.
I understand. I'm not doing podcasts. I'm doing the interview stuff. But yeah, I
Yeah.
know with the time that it takes to edit and everything else and the software and all that. I fully support you. I've
Yeah.
listened to your podcast. I listened to it long before I even asked you for the interview.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank
No,
you.
I'm totally honest. I think
Well,
it's very interesting.
are you subscribed? Because that's the most important part.
Yes,
Awesome.
subscribed and the little bell thing so that when your new one comes on, I'm already looking forward to it every Thursday anyway. But when it hits the little bell thing goes
Yeah.
on and it says the new one's up, and I listen to it all the time.
Fantastic. I appreciate your support. That really means a lot because people don't really realize, like, okay, you go and you watch an episode or two, but like being subscribed really makes a difference, especially if you want to try to grow your brands a lot. So and like one of my other friends who's a YouTuber told me that like a long time ago, and I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. And now that I'm doing it myself, I'm like, oh man, you're correct. It really makes the biggest difference, even though you go from 1 to 2 viewers, it makes a difference. And then when you start getting up, the more subscribers you have, the more options you have to edit your YouTube video within YouTube. So it really makes a big difference.
You are absolutely correct. Yeah, it's weird how they got the various levels and then the things you do, but you're on your way. You know, you've got, I know you've done, oh, and I'm sorry, one thing I wanted to mention, I thought was really cool what you do. You put all your podcasts up there, obviously, but then you put little snippets up, which I think is really cool because it could draw people in. You know, they might just catch that one little bit and then they're going to listen to the whole thing. I just thought that was really cool the way you do that.
Yeah, I'm actually moving all the snippets from there because it's starting to get really confusing. Like when I go to find one of my interviews. So I'm moving the snippets to another channel. It's going to be called Talkin Sass Clips. So I'm actually working on that now. There's a few up now, but not everything quite yet, but it will be. So all of them will be there, but I'm still posting them on my Facebook and my Instagram all the time and my Twitter all the time. So.
Well, we'll be following that. But if you ever have like a big change where if you're opening up the new channel or something, feel free to drop me a line. We'll throw it up on Global Woman Sports Radio. Fantastic. We'll throw it up. I think we would put you in the Independent or the Legends, whatever section.
I don't know about Legends.
Hey, you're a legend. Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate that. That's very, very sweet of you to say.
Well, I've been a big fan of yours from the time I saw you at our pro. You were always really cool to us. You always gave us interviews. You always gave us fun interviews. So I really did it. No, I absolutely did. And I really appreciate it. I really appreciate your time. And I encourage everybody to check out Talkin Sass because you got the sassy one here. And she's got a lot to say. And it's not all sassy either, but it's all fun.
It is. It's all fun. And like, a lot of my guests, I like to get, their personal stories on certain things. Like one of the best ones, if you guys want to go back and check out, was Shane Helms I had for my Christmas episode. He told some absolutely hilarious stories. In fact, go and find the one where he talks about Molly Holly and the Godfather hose. That one's my favorite.
Well, I encourage people to check that one. Check them all out because it really is entertaining. You don't even have to be a wrestling fan to enjoy it. The one you did with Hardcore Heather was fascinating. It was hilarious because she's a nutbag in herself, and I love her dearly too. But
and she has so much going on too with her podcast and everything that she does. So absolutely.
But you're getting there. You got 12 in the bag. I think it was 12, maybe more. But
I think it's more than that now. I think I'm at like 17. I think, well, at least at 17 that I've processed. I think so.
Well, we'll be watching them all. We'll be watching them in the future. We encourage everybody to check you out and say, I was going to call you Sassy. Steph, thank you very much for your time. Have a good evening. And again, I'm sorry about the Browns, but good luck next year.
Hey, we've always said there's always next year, but next year we are already super positive because it's January and we're not talking about a new coach or a new quarterback.
Like we are.
Yeah. Trust me, I've been there. I feel your pain. Well,
I appreciate your sympathy. Stephie, have a great night. And again, I really appreciate your time.
You too. Thanks, guys, so much.
Thanks.